then I felt like, again, God just didn't like me. I was God's mistake. My name is Titus Battle, United States Army Reserve. I joined the military because I was a homeless teen. I had been homeless for almost 3 years. I never attended high school. I was a high school dropout. It was the first time where I thought maybe I could pursue a dream, and the military seemed as if it was a proper answer at the time. Basically to get me off the street, get me a place to sleep and some food to eat. The positive times in the military that I experienced that was very new to me was making friends. Also seeing authority figures in a different light, where your authority figures in the military were there to develop yourself, to develop your skills, and to not make you scared of them in doing so. I first began to struggle with suicidal ideations. I think I was a kid and I was raised as a Pentecostal. So one day at 7 or 8 years old, could be 9, one of my first prayers to God was to not let me wake up the next morning. The only words that were planted into me was, you're nothing, your own mama didn't want you, you're worthless, you're stupid, you're ugly. So those are the words that were inside of my existence, and none of the adults that were around me, be it in school, be it in the church, military, they didn't plant the seeds of inspiration within me. No one told me that you're a good person. No one told me of the talents or showed me the talents, gifts, and abilities that I may have had within me. I just felt like I was accidentally created because I was a child of adoption, which led me to believe that my birth mother didn't want me and nobody in my birth family wanted me. And I just figured I'm one of those mistakes. God had no plans for me. So I felt I was here just to suffer, just for being born. So I just asked God to please don't let me wake up the next morning. But my prayer was never answered. I was discharged from the service in 1985, May 1985. But when I got out of my basics in AIT training, I returned to New York that night when I went home, my adopted mother had moved, unbeknownst to me. So I ended up, what I thought joining the military would end my homelessness. In November 79, it was cold. There was no one at home. And that night I had to turn around and sleep outside in the streets, sleep on the train. It was that night that I got beat badly. Somebody thought that I had money. Out of my desperation, I went to that person's house because I didn't want to sleep in the snow that night. But unbeknownst to me was what their plans were, and that was to get money out of me. So I didn't have any money. I didn't have a check. I just had my uniform and duffel bag. And so for hours and hours, they took their time beating the crap out of me, trying to find the truth. Where's the money? One of the reasons I think I survived because it definitely mimicked how I was raised. I got raised being beaten with sticks that didn't break. I got beaten the head, the arms. So it wasn't like a strange experience, but I thought society saw me in a better light. I had to jump out of the window, risky business on the second floor. I hit the concrete, and next thing I know, I woke up at Harlem Hospital and I was homeless again. What led to me pulling the trigger, I there's a little backstory to it. First of all, it was the first time I was unhomeless, non-homeless. It was the first time I had a bed to sleep in. I was in Birmingham, Alabama. I was a student at the university, UAB they called it, major college in Birmingham, Alabama. I was on scholarship. I had to go to the scholarship people, and before I can get any pay, I had to accept some abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. And man, before then, I had just gotten out of prison. In those 3 years that I was in prison, I had to almost daily deal with people trying to rape me, literally. It's the climate of the prison in Alabama. Draper Correctional Facility. Just there every day, protecting myself from being raped. That was a problem because when I was 8 years old in Williamsburg, walking from school, an African American male slapped me, pointed a gun to me, and said, "Follow him." So I had to follow him. The reason I followed him is because he was an adult and I was taught to obey adults. Another reason was he hit me, he slapped me. So I had to follow his directives. So when he took me downstairs into the basement and did his number on me, I didn't know what he did or what he made me do. I didn't understand the sexual activity in that moment. It was years later when I got to prison at 20 years old that I realized that I had been violated and I was mad. So I fought a lot in prison. I fought because I didn't like being sexually abused at 8 years old. I didn't like my body being beaten and sores and knots all over it. I didn't like being told to strip down, get naked so I could beat you. As a kid, I didn't like any of that. Fast forward, I'm out of prison. I received a scholarship to UAB. I was doing good academically, but where I had to get the money to get food to eat, to have a life, I had to make some sacrifices. I still had to take off my clothes and allow the scholarship providers to hit me. I never had any sexual acts with them, but I was touched in ways I didn't want to be touched. A friend came over who was a police officer, and in that very second, I asked him, "Can I see a gun?" Just out of curiosity. He had no idea that I had suicidal ideations. And to be honest, in that moment, I did not even know that I was in a position to pull the trigger on myself. And within 3 seconds rather, the gun was to my chest and I pulled the trigger and the bullet went into my body. Surprisingly, I didn't pass out. I bent over and he actually took me to the hospital. Ran down the stairs, got in the car, took me to ER, and it was there where I ended up passing out, where they had to do 6 hours of surgery on me to keep me alive. I had hit my vena cava, which is a major artery, and it was dripping. I had hurt my intestines, my small intestines, my large intestines, my stomach, my liver. All of that had to be repaired. But I didn't die that day. The gun was gone. I wasn't gonna do that trick no more, it failed. I did go to drugs. So after I shot myself, I still had feelings of self-worthlessness. None of that healed yet. I haven't dealt with why I pulled the trigger. So that was still there. I was mad at God, so I went and I heard somebody had died smoking cocaine, and I'm like, I could die. I could bust my heart open if I just do drugs. So I learned how to smoke crack, so my heart could bust so I could die. And the reason why I went to another self-destructive behavior is because I haven't yet dealt with the reasons why I wanted to die. I had no self-worth. One day while on crack, and after losing everything, this little voice in me said, why don't you try living as if you're gonna live 100 years rather than living every day as if you're gonna die? What if you lived your day as if you're gonna live 100 years? I discovered that I might have some purpose, some valuable purpose. The fact that I lived, the fact that my heart didn't bust on cocaine, it did make me mad at God. And I told God, if you're gonna have me live, then I'm gonna change the way people treat children. I'm not gonna live my life and allow kids to be beat, allow kids to be sexually abused. Because I shot myself, I lived on the streets, I smoked crack, and I watched a bunch of other kids who were raised with me lose their lives because of the way they were treated. So me living is not for me to have fun, to make money, to live it up, to live fancy. I have a purpose. The only reason I'm willing to live is because I want to be able to tell my story, keep people breathing, but keep folks from treating people in a manner to make them want to pull the trigger. I live for a purpose to help people keep breathing, including myself. When I walked into the Black Veterans Social Justice Program, I immediately told Mr. Rios, the first person I ran into, I'm like, I'm here to save my life. I haven't really shaken suicidal ideations. I was raised in that building where they are housed. So a lot of my trauma came out of that building. When I walked through the door for the first time, I was willing to identify and to recognize that my life was in danger of my own hands again, that I had lost my motivation to live. I didn't want to live. But unlike the first time when I pulled the trigger, I realized that I had secrets within me when I pulled the trigger. 40 years later, I'm still dealing with suicide. But what's different this time is that I didn't privatize it. I snitched myself out. I told the staff that I'm here to save my life, to keep breathing, because I didn't feel like I had any self-worth. I couldn't hang on to the rope. I felt myself losing the grip. I am not necessarily out of the woods. I'm not sure if having suicidal ideations is something you can get rid of, but I think it's definitely something that you can work with on a daily basis.